Welcome back, everybody. I'm glad that you're here. It's been a long stinking 6 months. To be honest, I just didn't make any time to come out in the garage. There was a lot of hard push for SEMA, which we unfortunately didn't make it with the car, to SEMA from work, and I had brothers moving states. A brother graduated college, a brother became a trooper, and there's been no time to make it in the garage, and that's not an excuse. I didn't put in the time or effort to come out here and work on my project. But with that said, there's a few more projects in the garage. There's one hidden up there on the lift. There's a lift in the garage now, which is pretty cool. I got a couple tote goats to fix up for my nephews for Christmas, and I'm hoping to get to that, but I really want to get this car done, and I'm kind of giving myself a couple weeks to at least finish it out, get it done, get it painted, so that we can move on to other bigger, better things. There's lots of projects that keep coming up. And you know me, I like projects. I want to collect them all. I just don't have exactly the space to do it. That's why we're starting to stack cars here at Prodigious Customs. And so let's get into fitting the bumper. We'll first talk a little bit about the bumper and what it is and how long I've had it, which could create an issue, and then to fitting it. So let's get into it. Check it out, guys. This is my Vader front bumper. It's been around for entirely too long, so I've actually had this bumper just about 10 years, if not more, just a little bit more. So things might have changed in the time that it has sat because it hasn't had anything to hold its shape. So it kind of has sunk through there a little bit, I believe. So this bumper is real different in the fact that it looks more aggressive. It has kind of a cooler stance than, say, a stock Celica bumper would. And it tends to be cheaper than an OEM replacement. But with that, you're going to have a lot of fitment issues. So with that, let's kind of look at what to look for first. Next thing to look for is your gaps. Whether you're fitting this bumper on a non-wrecked car or a wrecked car or whatever your reasoning is for changing out your bumper, make sure you're happy with every gap, the way the fender fits to the door, the way the headlight fits in the hole. If you don't have all your bolts in there, things can change when you go to tighten it up. I've made that mistake on several cars, and I want to keep you guys from having to make that same choice. So next, make sure to look for areas that may contact the bumper, areas that are going to be different. So first things first, this lip here is going to be way wider than what a factory OEM bumper will be, as well as the way our fog lights fit in the holes. So this is different location, different spot. So I went ahead and I'm going to notch out my bumper up here to clearance things that I know it's going to run into. There's a lip here and a lip here. I'm going to go ahead and pull the fog lights off and just get them out of the way so that I can fit the bumper up there and make sure it's going to be happy. If you got a buddy, it really helps so that you can make sure you're not up above on your fender and scratching the crap out of that. So I'm looking pretty good. Next, I'm going to grab a couple pair of vice grips and just lock it down to the fender where I like it. So as you can see here, I'm dealing with this and this. I just want to stretch my bumper back and then clamp it down so I can note where to make my hole for the bolt to bolt to the fender that's going to secure this thing where it should be. I'm hoping it doesn't slide off, but it might slide off on that other side. Pull it back where you're happy. Drive the struggle bus while you're trying to find where to clamp it. All right, like that. Make sure your arc is continuous. Make sure everything's lining up to where you're happy. Let's check out the other side. So, similar issue. Just pushing it back, get it to where you're happy. Hopefully not drive the struggle bus on this side. like that. Everything's lining up. Happy with where things are. Next thing to do is check where the hood falls. This is kind of where I've been having my issue on this particular bumper. So I can see that I'm overlapping pretty hard here, which that ain't gonna work. Another thing to note is how the headlight fits in here. It's sticking out a little bit more than I'd like, but man, I really don't care on this particular car. There's things you could do to make it just a little bit better, but I'm first of all gonna get this front end to roll out so that it's lined up here and here. So looking at that, we know we at least have these two mounting spots here and here, which, you know, this is just fiberglass, SMC, whatever. It's not very strong. If you try to put a whole lot of pressure on this and run a bolt through there, it's gonna crack. And when we roll this thing down where we're gonna need it, you can see the bolts are not even gonna grab where you want. There's a couple more places to mount up under here. And this is another flimsy lip that's most likely to crack as you put any stress on it. So I want to fortify those areas and make them strong so that this aligns up kind of where I want it. So to check exactly where I want it, I got some aluminum strips here. I'm just going to push the bumper down to where I think it should be and just kind of space it off coming out away from the car so it's not tucked up under the hood, and try to close the hood again. Alrighty, so after some adjusting, there's a pretty even gap between the bumper and the hood. The body lines are lining up where they should. They might be just a little bit off. I mean, you're gonna have that with any aftermarket part. The way you could change that is a little bit of body work and push the line one way or the other. So I'm not too concerned with it. At the end of the day, this is just a driver. It's something to look cool, something that's functional because the other bumper was smashed to bits, and cheap alternative. At the end of the day, it's just something to be functional. It has a bumper on it. So now I'm gonna fit up my fog lights, make sure that there's no issue with my bumper back there, because now that I got it fitting where I want it, I wanna make sure that the bumper is not gonna now cause some sort of issue where it's pushing the bumper up or out or changing my dimensions. So let me get that swapped in there and see how our fog lights fit. Alrighty, so got our bumper on there, fog lights are on. Same problem, both driver and passenger side. There's this big old gap up in here of just nothing, black space. The fog light is making contact with the bumper, not allowing the bumper to sit where it should. There's a big old gap up here. It's floating on top of the fender. It's just not happy. So you got a couple options. You can come in here with a grinder and take away part of the bumper until it just sits down flush and the fog light comes through. Or, which I have access to a welder, you may not, I'm gonna cut the bracketry for the fog light and move it up and over till it sits more centered in this hole and looks how it should. This is just one of the problems you're gonna run into with aftermarket parts, not fitting how a stock part would fit. But you could also buy some aftermarket fog lights that you could mount to the bumper itself so that you can center it in there however you see fit rather than use stock ones. But I'm gonna stick with the stock ones because that's what I have, and I don't want to be any more money into this project than I have to be. So what I found out working pretty good, and I mean, this is just a crappy way to do it, but it worked. I swapped right to left and left to right as far as my brackets go. Originally, the power cable would have sat in this slot. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if just putting the bolt hole through this slot would get me up high enough. And for now it does. And then I went ahead and just tacked on one of the mounts from the original mounts from the other side to the side here and bolted it up, and for now it's looking good. I'll get the second one all done up, and then we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like. So it just can't push on all the way. It's really close, both sides going in the center of the hole, just like I wanted. It's just the fog light's a little bit too big to fit through that hole, so I'm gonna have to grind that back till I can get that last inch or so slid up on the mounts and have it going good. So start shaving the bumper and we'll get back to it. Alrighty guys, so as you can see, I've worked on it. I've got it fitting how I like. The fog lights are fitting in there nice and flush. They look good. I'm happy with it. So now the next thing is to be able to reinforce the bumper because I want to clamp it down. As you can see, there's a little bit of a gap between the hood and the bumper, and I need to be able to push that up. Well, fiberglass isn't real good at holding bolts. It's going to just crack right through. So I want to show you how to reinforce your bumper so that you can bolt it up tightly, securely, and not have to worry about it cracking out into a million little pieces. Alrighty, so we know there's a stock mounting location on each corner of the bumper right here and here. But the issue is the center part has either over time sitting around, the mold has just kind of flattened down and it's trying to tuck underneath of the hood. So what I need to do is to be able to pull it this way, and as you can see, maybe or maybe not, the corners come in a little bit. So I want to reinforce my corners that have a little bit of slop so that they can roll in, that I can tighten this down and then clamp this to 2 more bolt holes along the core support. But just raw fiberglass ain't gonna cut it. As well as our corners, we need to be able to securely fasten them to the fender. Fiberglass is great and all, but it does not have the same structural capacity that steel does. So I want to reinforce the backside of this bumper to be able to sandwich between these 2 points, that I can get this little bit of adjustment in and make it look flush and correct. So before you go pulling your bumper off, once you have it adjusted where you like it, like I showed you, go ahead and mark approximately where the bolt hole is going to fall. Somewhere close, you can kind of eyeball it. As you can see, the mold is different from side to side where it lands on my core support, and this is where it would just rip out. It's so close to the edge that this bumper doesn't have a prayer of staying on there as soon as I bolt that down. There are also 2 more holes along here. I want to sandwich this lip down to catch those bolts so that I can adjust the bumper out and bolt it down and then bring the sides in so that the hood lines up along this flange nicely. Alrighty, so for these holes here on the corners, I'm gonna go ahead and rough all this up and add a washer on the top side. Reason being, if I support it from the back side, that's gonna create some height and come up into my hood, which I don't want. Just a quick tip, when you're fabricating things, be sure to label them, whatever's gonna work best for you, left and right, whether that's according to the way you're looking at it or the way the car is, the left side and right side, and which side is up. That way when you go to glue this stuff on there, you don't end up screwing yourself, your holes don't line up, whatever the case is. Give yourself a roadmap to be able to get back to where you're going. Okay, now to prep this stuff to glue it down, I'm gonna go ahead and take a roll-lock wheel and grind deep gouges all up in this and the backside to where I'm gluing. That's to create a tooth, a mechanical bond that the glue can sit down in. It's not all gonna squish off and you won't have anything to glue it together. Your glue will still be sandwiched between the parts, and that's where you get your strength. If you sandwich it too tight, all your glue goes out and you don't have really anything to bond the two together. So be smart in how you do that. I'll show you this piece once I have it all ground up and ready to go. Alrighty, so as you can see, we got all of our edges prepped. The washers are now prepped, ready to be glued on, as well as my chunk of aluminum, wherever I set it. Right here. So you just want to put some nice deep gouges in there, something that the glue will go down there and stick in. Then we'll go ahead and plop this thing on there and vice grip it down and let it sit till the glue dries. Now, what glue to use? I'll show you. Sting! Here it is. This stuff is what's gonna help you repair your fiberglass or SMC, any of that fibered style plastic. This stuff is gonna work wonders. This is impact resistant structural adhesive. It works awesome. You can soak your fiberglass fibers in it, fiberglass mat, whatever. When you put this stuff on properly and squish it and do everything you're supposed to according to the rules of this stuff, it's gonna work flawlessly and for a long time. It's gonna last. So that's what I'm gonna be using and sandwiching between my aluminum and my fiberglass, as well as my washers in the corner, and clamping them and letting it set up. This stuff is really cool. You know when it's dry because it goes from a silvery color to purple. Purple means you're ready to rock. So let's get this crap spread on there and start rocking and rolling and making forward progress. We're finally making forward progress and it's exciting. And yeah, let's do this. Alrighty, so this stuff's gonna work just like the last glue I showed you. I'm gonna replace the tip. It's not too old. You're gonna want to pump out a tube's length worth of product. And then you're ready to party. So we'll go ahead and slather all of this stuff up. And stick it. All right, now's where I need another hand and grab the vice grips. 1 second. Alrighty, I got my vice grips here. Go ahead and clamp it, not too tight that it spews everything out that's between there, but tight enough that you're getting all your air bubbles out. Just enough to push some out the side if that's what you want, that'd be perfect. You can take any excess and kind of just knead it into the crack. And voila, should work great. Alrighty, now that I got everything clamped, gonna let it sit. You can also apply a little bit of heat to this, helps it kick off faster. I'm not in a rush, but you know, I do want to get this done at the same time. Quick note on this glue is if you heat it, it will tend to run downhill. So if you're working on a panel that has shape to it, or it's a particular angle, just be aware of that. You can tape it and the tape will pull off pretty nicely, but it's nice and cool in the garage here, so I'm just gonna let this stuff chill. It'll sit where I want until it kicks off. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to building some corner brackets to fit in here and to take up this space. I'm kind of thinking I wanna build something that runs along this flange and down so that I get the strength of the side of the bumper as well as the corner and the top flange so that everything can sandwich together, be stronger, and not rip and crack and fall apart like these bumpers tend to do. So moving to the corner, I was thinking what kind of metal to bang and shape and to cut. Well, and a piece of angle iron would be ideal, and even better I found is a piece of unistrut. This stuff has holes in it, which will allow the epoxy to come up through, kind of mushroom out the top and create an even stronger bond. The only problem is this corner is not 100% square. So So I'll have to shave a little bit back off of this corner to get it to push up all the way in there. And then the shape of the bumper this way, I'm gonna go ahead and tap against this corner to get it to open up more. So it won't be a 90 degree, it'll be laid open. So I'll have to just keep checking my fit until it can no longer rock here, and that it fits solid, and I will be able to get the best bond possible. This is gonna be really strong because not only is it supported by the outside, it's supported along the top, and it'll have these plugs that come up through there and create a solid pocket for me to be able to bolt to. In my opinion, on this whole bumper, this is the most important corner, along with the other side, that will keep the shape of the bumper. Without these corners, it'll be flopping as it goes down the road. This sees the most stress, so as strong as you can make this, I would definitely advise that on any bumper you put on there. Alrighty, so for this side, this is what I came up with. Kind of just started manipulating the metal until it fit in there. It slides up in there, the hole goes straight through where I want it to. So I'm gonna go ahead and just trim this little bit of excess off along this edge. Just mark it so I know. I can almost actually leave this because there's nothing to interfere with the fender. I'll double check to make sure, because this little bit of extra meat will give me that strength that I need. As you can see, it's actually right along the edge of the hole. So I'll check for interference along here, make sure that there is none. If there's not, I can go ahead and leave it, grind all this, scuff it up, and glue this down. This is the easy side though. I'm gonna have to double check my other side, grind out the corner where they have too much fiberglass, and come up with a creative way to hog that out so that I can duplicate this exact same thing on the other side so that I have a nice strong bond. So for this guy, got it all roughed up, ground down. Now on the back side where that epoxy is gonna shove through, make sure you rough this stuff up too, where it's gonna come through. That way it gets a good bite as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this piece thrown on there. Don't forget to rough up the fiberglass on the inside here so that this has something to stick to. And I'm gonna get creative on the other side and show you what I come up with. Okay. Slide that bad boy up in there. Plenty of goop to push through. Lock it down on all the corners. What a mess. Okay, grab my vice grips. The glue's running down onto my vice grips. I don't want my vice grips to get stuck in there, so I'm gonna go ahead with a screwdriver, just clean that little bit out of the corner, and it should be good to go. Just scoop it up into the top and call it a day. So I have a little bit different approach since there was so much epoxy in this corner and fiberglass. I ended up just kind of rounding this out. It takes a little bit of the strength away, but there's already so much strength in this corner. As soon as I put more glue up in here, it'll be good to go. So this will fit up in there just like that. And I'll be able to glue just as I did the other side. No interference here. And go ahead and glue it in. Alrighty, so glue's drying. We'll wait on everything to turn purple. It'll turn purple. We know it's ready to go. And we can go ahead and throw it back on the car. Figure out how many shims we're gonna need for our area right here to get it up in the proper location and fit this bumper to the car. Hopefully one last time before we start body working, making it straight. And I'm sure that'll be in the next episode of just getting this thing as nice as it can be and finished. Prepped for paint and eventually a trip to the paint booth. Alrighty, so check it out. Once it's dry, it is turned purple and it's no longer tacky. You can check it here on your paper. You know that it's solid here. And remember how I said that I wanted these washers on top so I don't gain any height here? Well, listen to what I say, not what I do. I might end up having to grind these back down depending on our clearance issues. We'll just have to see as that comes along. Or just sandwich another one on top to help gain that strength there as well, but it should be good. A little bit of tape, no problem, can sand that off. And we know that it's a good strong bond there. There's no air bubbles, it's squished down, ready to rock. Same thing on the other side. So let's go ahead and test fit this thing on here. Alrighty everybody, I've got it to be as good as it's gonna get. It's ready for some body work. Not to discourage you, but this took me hours to get it here. I'm gonna save you the time of watching me just struggle to make the gaps and the lines all match up to the point of satisfaction. It took a lot of work. So there is some inconsistencies in the mold. This kind of has a taper up and gets a little tight, whereas this other side comes low here and then really cranks up. So I'm gonna end up grinding this down and re-fiberglassing this corner to fit a little better. Just that way it's one consistent gap. There's also a rubber that will run the length here, which will also help, I don't wanna say hide any inconsistencies, any waviness, but it will. There's a little bit too much material here. It's kind of running into the headlight, so I can come back in there and hog some of that out from the back side, just that way it has a nice gap around the headlight. It's not pushing against the headlight, no clearance issues there. Both corners of the bumper kind of end at this inner body line. I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's just not worth fighting it. That's there. I'll go ahead and fiberglass this in and square up this corner so that it's completely square. Looks like it's part of it. In pushing my bumper out, my headlights actually fit a lot better rather than being so far poked out. So, under the hood here, everything worked out pretty good. Having the washer underneath didn't screw me too bad. It keeps me from having to do too much body work up top here. I do have to fix this Wahoo, Dualiad, whatever is going on here anyway, but a little bit of fiberglass work, yes indeedy. Also, I came up with these wedged washers, basically. This is not permanent by any means. This top one I had actually underneath at the beginning and the skinnier one on top to complete the set, but it just pushed it up too far that I couldn't catch the hood with my latch. So I just flipped them to see if I could then catch the latch, which I did. So this isn't permanent. I'll have another nylon washer up here just to complete the look, get it down so that I don't have this tall bolt just sitting up here. And like I said, there will be a rubber that runs along this edge, cleans things up, makes it look nice. And yeah, we are there. This thing is ready to start being body worked and fixed up to the point that it's getting to the paint booth. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate the heck out of all of you guys, old subscribers, new subscribers since I've put any videos out in the last 6 months, and those that keep coming back watching videos. I appreciate you guys. Feel free to hit me up in the comments. I appreciate those. I love hearing from you guys, and I hope you have a great freaking day, and I'll see you on the next one.